Hello everyone, I wanted to film a video to talk about how to progress exercises. So this is something that as coaches we really want to pay attention to because our ultimate goal is safety. Number one as a coach is to do no harm. So to do that, we need to make sure that we're all progressing at an optimal level. And when we come into whether it's private training, classes, whatever it is, we want to go after it. We want to go hard. We want to do things, and that's great. The enthusiasm is awesome, but we have to understand where we are in terms of our exercise, our abilities, and make sure that we're not overstepping those boundaries because potentially if we are, you're going to be at a higher risk for injury. Some sort of aches, strains, pains, and if you get injured, then you're not moving towards your goal. You are moving away from your goal. So having a basic understanding of how we progress exercise is a really good tool to ensure that we're moving on a path, on a progression that is safe and effective for us. And when we do that, we get a lot better training in, and the results are ultimately better. Okay? So number one, we want to look at how are we actually loading exercises and patterns and so forth. And number one is we're going to just perform a pattern. And I've laid out two examples. I've laid out the hip hinge and then finally the squat to look at that and see how we can progress these patterns. Okay? The pattern is just the movement without any type of load, making sure that you're doing it properly. A prime example of the hip hinge is, can you just bend over with a nice flat spine, neutral spine, without any weight, without any resistance? Can you do that? In the squat, can you do a squat pattern without any load, with just your body weight, the right way? And the right way is there's a lot of different ways for people and based off of their mobility and what their experience is. But it's safely. Does it look and feel safe? And that's number one. Can we do the pattern slowly? Okay? We learn in a certain way is if we try to do things fast, then that might hide the need or the specific cue or exercise or control that we need to perform it correctly. Number one, pattern slow, and that is that can you do a hip hinge, a bending pattern? Can you do a squat without any type of weight? Number two is, can you then perform the pattern at an increased tempo? Increased tempo would just be, can you increase the speed of that a little bit while still performing it really, really well? And so based off of that, we could still do a hip hinge, we could still do a body weight squat, but could we increase the tempo of that, still maintaining a high level of control and a high level of execution? Okay. After you've done the pattern at an increase of speed or tempo, then we can load the pattern. Loading the pattern in a slow movement. So now an example of this would be in the deadlift, or the hip hinge. We can start to load the pattern with a good morning, where we just hold the weight at our hip, or we can do that full deadlift with a kettlebell, for example. That would be doing the exercise in a slower movement, but then we start to load it. Okay? In the squat, can you now execute that squat, perform that squat with a weight in your hand? We call that the goblet squat. Okay? Loading it slowly. From there, we're going to load it with an increased tempo or speed. Okay? And same thing, if I'm doing a good morning or a kettlebell deadlift or a goblet squat holding weight, can you do that movement with a little bit more speed behind it? Okay? Still executing and performing that exercise at a very high level. Then finally, we have loaded with speed. Okay? Now this will come out in an exercise like a kettlebell swing. You see it's coming out very fast, but the pattern is still a hip hinge. It's loaded, but now you're moving that pattern really fast. And you're exhibiting a lot of control and executing at a very high level. Okay? Example in the squat would be a squat jump. Driving up really fast under control requires a lot of skill. Kettlebell swings require a lot of skill. You need these skills developed in succession, incrementally, in order to perform these safely and effectively. So with all of our exercises, let's make sure that we're following a good sequence. Pattern. Learn the pattern first. Increase the tempo of the pattern. Load the pattern slowly. Increase the loaded pattern, the tempo of it. And then finally, we're looking for fast, explosive work. That would be a much higher level skill. Cool? So follow these rules within your training, within classes. And when you do that, you're going to be set up for success. You're going to avoid injury. And you are going to perform at a very high level in no time. Hope you find this helpful. And as always, if you need help with anything, feel free to reach out.